Does God make the human or do humans make the gods? This is a question that has plagued philosophers for centuries. In Ordeal, we are also provided with this exact dilemma between three of the great talents. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm the leader of the Cosmic Armada, Wolf Nara, and welcome back to the returning members of the Cosmic Armada as well. Today we will journey deeper into the lore of Ordeal, discussing one of the four great talents, Okeanos, also known as the Great Ocean Talent. Ocean. Keep in mind, there will be spoilers from this point on. If you have not caught up completely, I will keep a spoiler mark for when we dive into that type of territory. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe with the bell enabled to be notified when the video drops. The four great talents are based on the gods of Greek mythology: Poseidon, Zeus, Hades, and Thanatos, and lastly, Helios, god of the sun. Today, we'll be focusing on Poseidon, specifically his real-world lore, connection with that lore to the story, and potential use of the talent as well. Historically, Poseidon is not only known as the god of the sea, but also the god of earthquakes. Due to the trident of Poseidon being able to create earthquakes from a single wave, those earthquakes are powerful, but he has a plethora of other abilities and titles. Poseidon has control over all bodies of water and the creatures that reside in them as well. He also introduces horses to Greece as well, and is looked at by some as the god of horses. This is why historically he is seen riding his chariot with two horses. When looking at media, you have characters like Aquaman, the Deep, and Namor, but we won't be talking about any of those iterations. Today we will be talking about the iteration in God of War 3 of Poseidon. When Poseidon begins to fight Kratos, we see that the affinity to horses play a key factor in his design. His water form rides a water horse with claws protruding from it. We also see that the calling of storms also plays into the attack pattern as well. When stabbing the ground, he creates an area of electricity. When stabbing Gaia, although he was the first to fall, the impact from lore and history was amazingly executed by Santa Monica Studio. Now that we have the history and current media takes on Poseidon, let's talk about the Ordeal's character, Okeanos, who possesses the ocean talent. When looking at Okeanos, we see that he does not mind K.O.D.E being worshipped as a god, while Illios gets upset at this. He sets his sights higher. When taking a look into this statement, he believes that the things that are not as mighty as they are beneath his time, showing great pride in himself and his brother's abilities, while clashing with the ideals they choose to uphold rather than focusing on tasks that demand their ability. It shows that he prides himself on holding his intellect above many, further explaining why he got mad when Illios told him, "No one asked you for your opinion." He responds by saying, "Say it to my face," and that ocean dispatches flames. Showing pride in his ability to compete with his brothers, Illios, who is regarded by the people later in time as the strongest, which may also be an actual misconception. Okeanos is based off Poseidon, Aquaman, etc. tasks he most likely spent mostly away from people. So being known as a great talent, since he mostly controls all of water and ocean genetically speaking, most water-based talent may be a result of Okeanos. If we consider the four great talents as the progenitors of the very first talents and that they can be passed down through a family, then through genetics, the elemental-based talent of water could be the lineage of Okeanos. Let me know what y'all think about that theory. When racing off to war with Illios K.O.D.E to face their oldest brother Thanatos, we see him telling his brother, "Stay thy wrath. The humans are wreath, but they are not ours to oppress." With this statement, it shows he takes more of a passive outlook on leadership. He understands that his might can keep order, but it can be a double-edged sword. So, with that being said, I pose the question: does Okeanos' great pride stem from his might or in his judgment in the application of that might? Thanatos, when speaking on Okeanos, saying how he has the grandest of their abilities and he never disappoints. The grandest does not mean the strongest, but the largest. as in he controls 71% of the Earth's mass, or 71% of the water that encompasses Earth's mass. And his control of that ability has always been held by Thanatos in high regard. During the early seasons of Ordeal, we see the inspired take on the lore with Okeanos riding a seahorse. When he using the attack against Thanatos, there is a ton of lore being represented by that attack. He summons a wave reminiscent of a horse stampede. With the wave being formed around, it's showing the overwhelming force of the attack in of itself. This very attack reminds me of how Posiden in God of War 3 manipulated the water to form not only a horse, but also a call to the other sea creatures under his dominion by combining the horse and the crustacean claws together. In the story of Ordeal, there's Patmos, which is supposed to not only hold all of the criminals, but also all of the Kimyos whose talents are marked too dangerous for society. This island is never in the same location and constantly on the move. For the One Piece fans, think about the island of Zou, where Zunisha moves around, so most people could never find the island. For that island to move, it is stationed on Zunisha's back. In Ordeal, Patmos moves due to the power of the great talent of the ocean. He is able to move the entire ocean in order to provide Patmos constant coverage. He is a human in which the ocean does not move unless he is actively trying to do so. When inheriting the great ocean talent, since we finally finished the part about Okeanos, his inspiration, his history in the story, and his feats as well, now we will begin to discuss his great talents based on season 2, episode 96, and begin to speculate just where Brent could go from here with his great talent. When looking at the great talent themselves and talking about a bit of biology and genetics, since this power system is based on it even just a little bit, we have to make sure we cover all grounds. There are 17 categories, all deriving from these 4 great talents. Just to cover our bases, we will be listing them off, but showing an overview of the system. We have toxic, void, warp, state, support, range control, range, psychic, shift, haste, hides, control, corrode, kinesis, power, elemental, and creation. Those are all the different categories of the talents. When given a talent of this proportion, it is always seen as a grace from God. My theory is that the great talent have an individual My theory is that the great talents have each individual category into one. As a state talent, we've seen Illios use his abilities in multiple categories. With the Greek lore, we know that the gods have, they got jiggy with mortals, and there's no difference in Ordeal lore. It's said that back in Okeanos time, there were only 4 who had the genetic mutation of the Kimyo. For the race to spread to 1/3 of the population, they would have to spread their seed. When looking at genealogy, the study of genetics, you have dominant and recessive traits. When a Kimyo is in the oven, the power is most likely dominant, which allows them to spread so quickly in a matter of generations. However, just because it is dominant does not mean that it will always be the trait chosen. You then have recessive traits, in which that ability is there genetically, it has a less likely chance of being shown. When taking a look into family history in real life, you know that there is an amalgamation of races or ethnicities you can identify with on a genetic scale. In contrast, your ancestors' marital choices is why some percentage are higher than others. When looking at Ordeal Kimyo further back in time, were stronger than the ones we have now. The gene pool then is linked closer to that of the great talents because the generations are closer. So each generation gets weaker talent-wise because they are one step further generation-wise away from the great talent. We also have the biological component, which the amount of chi you have in a cell gives you more uses of your Kimyo ability. Now, the ability themselves that all Kimyos have are a subcategory of the 4 great talents. Now we are entering spoiler territory, but also theory territory as well. So I'm gonna give you guys a few seconds. All right. So make sure to click out the video if you haven't peeped. Season 2 of Ordeal. Throughout the story, Che has been accessing more and more of Illios' power into the mental scape in which he not only seen Illios but the previous users of Illios as well. Illios stated that he had to have enough power to enter there, in which the mindscape looks like the very symbol that Illios have, the Greek symbol, or in God of War's case, the God of War symbol. Now, how does this relate to Okeanos? I would imagine the conditions to be similar as well. The wielder of the great talent has to reach a certain amount of strength, talent, / chi wise before being able to enter the mindscape, in which an avatar of Okeanos should appear. We never see Okeanos represented by a symbol, but since he is based on Posiden, his symbol would be the trident. The only civilization that would fit is Atlantis. If Atlantis is under the sea, it will be dark at first and then illuminated, and the user is in there. That would be a fire scene if Brent was to illuminate Atlantis for the mindscape of Okeanos. Or it could be shown above water but still play homage to Atlantis itself. There's an early 2000s movie of Atlantis, which shows an above ground version, but also the innovation through water itself. I can see the city made for him, and he took pride in his people so much that he could form a mindscape of such a city. Now, when the vessel of a great talent is able to bring out its true state, they don the armor and weapon of the talent user. We see with the current ocean talent user, he dons an armor, reminiscent of 1990 comics version of Aquaman, where it is a scale tight suit. While in Ordeal, the colors are more flowing and raw. We know he gains access to Okeanos power itself, thus allowing the user to have complete control over water as if Okeanos himself is using it. Think of it as perfect Kurama Link mode. I'm sure he could not only move large bodies of water, but even command the creatures of the sea, as seen with Okeanos commanding the seahorse. He could compress water of giant waves. However, the fun does not end with that. The Okeanos sync mode, but there's one thing that no one but Che may have access to, but it would be fun to speculate about it, so let's talk about it. The Great Talent War State, in which it will be called Okeanos War State. With the War State, you will be able to have each vessel of Okeanos and all of their knowledge being at the current user's disposal. Depending on the time frame, we could get a fleet of pirate battleships riding a wave. This could be an army of water pirates, thus keeping him from having to use soldiers and losing human lives. We could possibly have someone like H.P. Lovecraft as one of the vessels, in which in recent times, instead of it being a Kraken, we get a physical or water form version of Cthulhu itself. Now, if we take into account creatures, someone could have better control over the version of the power itself in regards to taming the animals. We know the God of the Earth is one of his titles because he could cause them by the wave of his trident, as stated before. If one talent user of Posiden could cause major earthquakes, something akin to Whitebeard in One Piece, where he could wave the talent against the trident against the air and cause a massive earthquake. The War State takes a ton of chi to use as well. When activating it sends the respective element energy out into space. So in this case, it would send a massive water shooting out into space, almost as if it was a geyser. Unlike most talents, the great talents are able to momentarily assume control of their vessel and output power that even the user cannot put out at that time alone. But this is all I got for the Great Talent Explain Okeanos video. Make sure you like the video, comment anything I missed about the Great Talent of Okeanos down below, or anything about the video you enjoyed as well. It's been your boy Wolfnar, leader of the Cosmic Armada. Enjoy your day. I'm out.
Who really a factor? I done grew up as a bastard, stepped out the wound into a disaster. Designing drugs and guns on my city after, pray for the lackers. Cause it only get worse and they try to blame it on the rappers. Label was factors. My rappy told me sign an affidavit like my life and my family ain't matter. Do you know how I feel to get served to the court on the platter? That shit that happened. Lose your life fell soon like the months in the wound that your mama went through never